All right. Well, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Noel Coleman. I am with Doctor.com and I'm the Chief Revenue Officer there. And today, I thought we'd talk a little bit about the digital front door and trust in healthcare. Obviously, a little bit about me. Been in this space for about 21 years. Worked with hospitals and health systems. Actually built a company called Connect Healthcare that worked with hospitals on things like their Find a Doctor tools, transparency, reputation management, and have worked with over 200 hospitals. But most importantly, and this is probably pretty important for this particular venue, is I'm a husband and a father of 3 boys. So like any good father, I'm going to subject you to photos of my kids. And so this is my 3 kids, Caleb, Logan, and Mason, and they are. This is the Facebook photo. So this is the photo that is posted intentionally to try to make you think that life is perfect. Everybody's hair is always done. Their faces are always clean. They're always wearing matching outfits and smiling. We're always peacefully in the background. This is what it looks like. However, as any of you who have kids, especially boys, you know that that's not the way life actually works out. This is a little closer to what reality looks like, where we've seen our share of the hospital. We've been there. For anybody, I don't know if they're here, but this is Children's Healthcare of Atlanta, where I live. So if you're here, thank you. They've taken care of my kids in a number of different cases. And I share this very simply because of this, is that what we're going to talk about today is something that's visceral to me, because I've been the dad who's looked for care. I've been the dad who's looked and seen, how am I going to take care of my kids? What providers am I going to use? Where can I make sure that we're taking care of everything from birth all the way up through where they are today at 10 years old? So the question is trust. Like, what is the status of trust in healthcare? And the good news is we don't actually have to guess at this. I'm sure plenty of you have seen this. Edelman is a group that does a trust barometer every year. And so that's really cool. You should check it out. There's a ton of information in this. One of the things that they found in 2018, 2019 when they were doing this is an interesting stat, is that across all of the subsectors of healthcare, hospitals and clinics were the only group that actually went down in their trust globally. And if you're wondering, it's probably just globally, it's not necessarily US. If you look at this one, you can kind of see the red arrow here, shows that at 15 out of 26 markets that trust has gone down. US is in that group, and in fact, if you pay attention to the numbers, it's actually one of the worst. It's actually gone down 7 points, where the top is Singapore with 8. But more importantly, and this is one that was really surprising to me when I saw this, was that women actually trust healthcare less than men, which is really problematic, because I know this is true in our house, that the women are usually the CEO of healthcare decisions in the family. So if they don't trust you, then that's kind of a big challenge. And so this is actually something that's very true. And in fact, the biggest gap is in the US. So this is one of those things where healthcare is not engendering the trust in hospitals the way that they want to. Now, trust is a multivariate kind of problem. There's nobody here who's going to solve it through one strategy. We're not going to solve it today. You're certainly not going to solve it in one company or one set of time. However, what you can do is think about what are the different components. And the digital front door, which is where the Doctor.com ecosystem lives, this is where it all begins. And it's very intuitive. I always compare this to relationships. The digital front door is like the first time you meet somebody. It's that first impression. And so when you're thinking about this, in Doctor.com, we did a survey. We do it every year of several thousand patients, asking them about their thoughts and their considerations around finding care, about how they look for care. And one of the things that we found was that 63% of people say that they would choose one provider over another one based on their digital presence. Why is that? It's that first impression, right? They're coming in, they're trying to figure out, how do we know if this is a good doctor? A lot of times they don't have the technical expertise to understand some of the quality data that you show. So they're looking for proxies. They're looking for, it's funny, it sounds weird, but having a photo in an online profile generates twice as many clicks and 3 times as many conversions. We've seen it over and over again. But in this case, and a lot of times we see that self-reported data and behavioral data will tend to diverge. In this particular case, we see that it doesn't. 60% of people have actually chosen another provider because of online reviews. And in fact, I've seen studies that'll show that up to 37% of people will go to a doctor that's outside of their network because of reviews. And so one of the things we've seen, this came from our own data, it was corroborated from Google. I'm sure some of you have seen some of Google's data, that most people, 8 out of 10, even with a referral in hand, will still Google and research that care, research that doctor. So a lot of people will say, well, we do a lot of our business from referrals. That's where we get our patients. So a lot of the people who are searching online, not necessarily really the people who are really getting most of our business from. The reality is that when they get that referral, it's really just an invitation to Google you. And in fact, one of the things I saw recently was Google had another stat. They said that when people they see a television ad, the first thing they do is they reach for their phone, their tablet, their laptop, and they Google to get more information about it. So literally for the folks who are spending millions, a lot of our clients spend millions and millions of dollars on TV ads, and they can be very effective. However, they're very effective at driving people online. And so if the digital presence isn't good, you can potentially lose and waste a lot of money. One of the other things that's also really important to recognize is that this is about more than just patient acquisition. It's also about retention, because this is a stat we saw, assuming that the quality of care was considered to be equal, people considered customer service the most important influence as to their loyalty. Another interesting stat that Rock Health did a few years ago was they did a study and they found that the more somebody goes to see a physician in a given year, the more they actually go look online at reviews. It's almost like that buyer's remorse. They're doing something that's very, very important, and they want to verify that this is actually they have the best care. They have the best providers for what they're doing. And then, of course, the scheduling side. I don't think this is surprising to anybody. 45% of people, about half of them, say that they would prefer digital methods for doing it. And about 42% say they would actually choose a different provider to have the ability to do that. So, we say, okay, digital front door is important. What does that look like? Where our marketing team has handled the website. We're showing up, high in search. So, hey, we've got that covered, right? We're good. Well, one of the things that's unique about Doctor.com is because we have a very large set of doctors that are using our scheduling solutions, we're able to actually track behavioral data. So we took a subset of about 30,000 physicians, and we have the ability to take the scheduling tools and have them show up across the hospital's website, the third-party sites, the doctor's own website, et cetera. So we can see where do people click to book most appointments. So again, kind of thinking about behavioral data versus self-reported data, what you'll see is that 88% comes from 3 sources. 61% of it comes from healthcare sites, so this is your health grades, your vitals, your wellness, people like that. 17% come from Google, and I know a lot of times people go, wait, I thought Google was the dominant player. They are when it comes to search. So when somebody's looking for information, Google definitely dominates. Right, but it's kind of like I always tell people, it's like there's enough information on Google itself that I can buy a pizza or a sweater. But if I'm choosing a care provider for my kids, I want a little bit more information. I'm going to go a little bit deeper. And that's why a lot of those third-party sites begin to serve a function. Google obviously at 17%, and I've actually seen the hospital provider website corroborated in a couple of different independent studies. Klein & Partners is one that comes to mind. They've done an omnibus for a number of years. They've seen that I believe it's ranges between 6 and 12%, that we found 10% are booking from those sites. So when you look at this, it's important to really kind of look at this and see, okay, from a patient's perspective, what is the digital front door? Well, it's Google, right? And so when they're doing that search, this is where people are looking at you and coming to have that first impression. So it's important to really be able to break this down and see it in a couple of different ways. I won't go through all of the different ways this happens, but I figure I'd do 2 for you today. Number 1, you have the Google search for a name, right? This is that referral situation. Somebody got a doctor's name, they're looking for him. Richard is actually, he's part of UNC Healthcare in North Carolina. They're a client of ours. But when somebody comes in, the very first thing is you do want your Find a Doctor to show up first, right? That's the very first thing. This is that winning in search that everybody talks about. And it's important, but the thing that I always make sure that people understand is it's sort of like if you're the best fisherman in the world with a single fishing pole, that's amazing, that's great. But if I come in with a 100-foot net, I can catch everything in the lake and I'm gonna beat you. I can just get more. So it's not necessarily about winning in search alone, it's about covering the front. It's about making sure that the other 9 spots in Google are representative of the care that you provide. So that's where things like the listing sites come in. So being able to have the accurate information, a good story about the providers and the care that they're providing, and having all of that information be consistent across the web. But which, by the way, is also a signal for Google that you're controlling your digital presence, which actually helps you win in search. So that's an important aspect of this. Third piece is the Google Knowledge Panel. So everybody's seeing this on the right-hand side of Google. Again, it's not enough to necessarily choose care, but it is definitely enough for people to decide whether or not they're gonna go deeper or move on to the next doctor. So it's a very important aspect of things. And then finally is the engagement side. So this is, you're on the web and you're looking around. One of the things that people are routinely looking for is how engaged is this company? Like how much do they care? Do they actually have a lot of reviews? Do they engage with those reviews? Do they thank people for good reviews? Do they try to deal with bad reviews? Are they trying to do service recovery? So you can actually turn negative comments and reviews on the web into a positive situation by simply engaging and being able to have a way of responding. So then if you can think about this from a near me search, all right, so this is earlier in the cycle for a patient where they're thinking about this, and this is actually something we mention a lot, is that a lot of people talk about patient journeys. It's really patient cycles, okay? Because a journey implies a beginning and an end, right? They start off not my patient, they end up becoming my patient. And that might be true for an individual physician, but it's not necessarily true for your system because they might come in to see a pediatrician, and then they need to get a referral out to a specialist. Well, it doesn't necessarily mean that they just immediately go to the specialist that you've told them to go to inside of your network. They go back out to Google, they do this again. So they might be looking for, a pediatric oncologist near me or a pediatric cardiologist near me, and doing those searches. Well, when you're doing that, again, what you're looking at is they got that search. They're gonna have a top result, which is going to be the Google My Business area. And if you're on your phone, where most searches are happening today, what's gonna happen is that the ads and the GMB profiles, as they call them, the local pack, are gonna show up. That's gonna be, using old terminology, it's gonna be above the fold. On your phone, that's what's gonna be on the top screen before you have to scroll. So those are important to make sure you have right. And then hopefully you'll have your Find a Doctor link. You might have location pages, service line pages, things like that that are showing up. And then of course, again, the third-party sites for their ratings and reviews. So one example of this is a client we just onboarded. We're in the first 90 days of kind of working with them. One of the things that was kind of interesting, I did a little bit of digging right before I came here and found out that in the first 60 days, we were able to help them get to a place where they were at about 58% accuracy on their information across the web. So in other words, when a patient went online, they were about 50-50 shot whether or not they were actually gonna find good information. And that's not a good situation to be in, obviously. So in the first 60 days, we were able to get them up to about 80% accuracy. We're expecting to be able to about 90-95 in the next 30-45 days. But most importantly, that's netted an increase of about 150% growth in traffic. So that means 150% more traffic. It's more of an opportunity to acquire those patients, to be able to retain those patients, and be able to grow your market share. And then we talk about transparency a lot. I won't spend a ton of time here, but just kind of mentioning, one of the things we see a lot is that about 70 to 80% of the available data on a physician and the patient experience that they provide actually lives inside of the survey data. So this might be Press Ganey, NRC, PRC, Qualtrics, whoever you use, having that data and being able to make it transparent. So that 63% of people who are looking and making decisions based on online presence are doing it not on 20 to 30% of the available data, but 100%. So what is like building a digital front door with Doctor.com? So a couple things we'll breeze through real quick. One of the things I always tell people, nobody wakes up in the morning going, gosh, I wish I had a reputation management system, or I could buy a listings management solution today. Really what you're thinking about is, how do I make sure that patients have access to my doctors? They have access to information wherever they are. They have access, we can capture feedback from them. We can use that feedback to improve our business and improve our performance. And so that's really what Doctor.com does, is have a platform to be able to help you manage all of those components of that digital front door. Happy to share this with you. I'm not going to read through it, but there's a bunch of things that make us unique in the space on an experiment. But if anything here is something that you guys are working on or looking to work on, please feel free to stop by and talk to us. We'd love to share a market scan with you of your local competitors, and you guys have a great rest of your day.